Okay, let's dig into this. I have to be honest with you right off the bat. When I first picked up the book for today, The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiese, I felt a little bit attacked.
Attacked. It's a confronting title, I'll give you that.
Ugh,
It doesn't leave you much wiggle room.
right. My immediate reaction wasn't curiosity, it was pure defensiveness.
Well, that's because we're so conditioned to look outward, When we think about the mountains in our lives, the big obstacles, we point fingers. It's the economy, the housing market, a terrible boss.
Oh, absolutely. It's the apps, it's politics, it's inflation. And then here comes Weiss basically saying, no, put your finger down, look in the mirror. The roadblock isn't in front of you, it is you.
And that feels like an accusation.
It does. Like, oh, great. Not only is my life hard, but now it's my fault too. It feels a lot like victim blaming.
I think that's a very common initial reaction. It's a hard pill to swallow because it implies agency, where we feel powerless. But here's the nuance, the thing that hooks you once you get past the cover. Wyeth isn't saying the mountain is you to shame you. This isn't a deep dive about how you're lazy or broken or toxic.
Okay, good. That's a crucial distinction because if I thought this was just 300 pages of try harder, I would have thrown it across the room. So if it's not shame, what is it? Because the phrase self-sabotage,
Yeah.
it usually carries a lot of heavy baggage.
She flips the script entirely.
Oh,
Her core thesis is that self-sabotage is not a product of self-hatred. It isn't even a lack of willpower, which is what we usually tell ourselves. She argues that self-sabotage is actually a biological and psychological mechanism of self-protection.
self-protection. That sounds completely counterintuitive. How on earth is ruining my own chances at success? Whether it's blowing a deadline or ghosting a great relationship, how is that protecting me?
Because to your subconscious mind, the unknown is terrifying.
Uh-huh.
Even if it's a positive unknown, like a promotion or a secure marriage, it looks unsafe. So you aren't sabotaging yourself because you want to fail. You're doing it because, on a deep, primal level, failing feels safer than succeeding.
Wow.
Failing is familiar. You know how to survive failure. You don't know how to survive the new thing.
That is actually kind of terrifying. You're saying we essentially burn down our own lives, not because we hate ourselves, but because we're just trying to stay safe in the misery we know.
Precisely. And that is the mission for this deep dive. We need to stop looking at the symptoms, the procrastination, the anxiety, the flaking out. We need to stop treating them like character flaws and really excavate the root cause. We're going to figure out how to move from that misplaced self-protection to actual self-mastery.
So let's get into the mechanics here. How does Weiss actually define this mountain? Because this idea of conflicting needs keeps coming up.
Right. So structurally, the mountain arises when you have two needs colliding head-on. On one side, you have your conscious need. This is the stuff you put on your vision board. You want to be successful. You want to write that book.
The things we say we want when we're making New Year's resolutions.
Exactly. But then underneath that, running in the background, you have an unconscious need. And usually, that is a primal need to stay safe, comfortable, or unseen. When those two collide, the desire to move forward and the primal need to stay hidden, that friction pushes up a mountain.
You want to hit the gas, but your body is slamming on the brakes. There's a story Witz uses to illustrate this that I think is just wild. It's about Carl Jung, the psychologist. I'd never heard this backstory before.
It's a fascinating anecdote. It really shows how early this starts.
Yeah.
So picture a young Carl Jung. He's a kid, he's in school, and honestly, he's miserable. He feels alienated, hates the structure.
Right. And one day he's in the schoolyard and he gets pushed. He falls and hits his head hard. Now, that's traumatic enough on its own. But in that moment of impact, he has this crystal clear thought, maybe I won't have to go back to school now.
I think we've all had a version of that thought,
Yeah.
You wake up with a sore throat and there's that tiny split second of relief. Oh, thank God, I can skip that presentation.
Exactly. But for Jung, it went so much deeper because the injury worked, he got to stay home. But then, as he healed physically, the solution stuck psychologically. He started developing these uncontrollable fainting spells.
Uncontrollable.
Every time he tried to go back to school or even just do his homework, he would literally pass out.
And this is key. He wasn't faking it. It wasn't a performance. His body was physically shutting down.
I have to stop you there because that's a terrifying concept. You're saying his body just took over. That sounds almost like a possession.
In a way, it is. It's a possession by the unconscious mind. Jung later called it a substitute for legitimate suffering. His brain found a valid excuse to get his unconscious need met, avoiding the misery of school, without him having to consciously admit, I'm scared or I hate this.
So he created a physical disaster to solve an emotional problem.
That is the anatomy of self-sabotage. We create a crisis to avoid a difficult truth.
So we're essentially manufacturing problems because the fake problem, the fainting, the procrastination, the drama, is easier to deal with than the real problem, which might be fear of failure or vulnerability.
You nailed it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just psychology, it's biology.
Yeah.
We have to talk about homeostasis.
Okay, we know homeostasis regulates temperature, blood sugar, all that. But how does that apply to my career? Are you saying being broke is a biological set point?
In a way, yes. Think about it in terms of energy. Your brain is an energy conservation machine. It consumes a massive amount of your body's glucose. Doing something new, building a new neural pathway, learning a new skill, navigating a new tax bracket is energetically expensive. It's exhausting.
So the brain prefers the old path, not just because it's familiar, but because it's cheap.
Exactly. It's the path of least resistance. The brain doesn't prioritize happy. It prioritizes efficient and survive.
Survived.
Right. If you've been broke for 10 years, your brain has a very efficient low-energy map for how to be broke. You know how to stress about bills, you know how to budget for noodles. It's efficient. If you suddenly get a windfall of money, that represents the unknown. It requires new maps. And to the primal brain, unknown equals danger and high energy cost.
So if you start succeeding and you're feeling better than you've ever felt, your internal thermostat goes haywire. It says, whoa, whoa, we are burning too much fuel here. We don't have a map for this. And it kicks in the AC to bring you back down.
That's the upper limit problem, a concept from Gay Hendricks that Wiest leans on. We all have a tolerance for how much good we can allow ourselves to feel. When we exceed it, when things are finally going right, we subconsciously freak out to return to baseline.
So we pick a fight with our partner, we get a sudden migraine, we forget to set an alarm for a crucial meeting, we sabotage to bring ourselves back down to that comfortable level of misery.
It's incredibly frustrating because it feels like we're rigged to fail. But understanding that mechanism is the first step. You aren't broken. Your thermostat is just set too low.
That helps explain the why. But in the whole world, this just looks like bad habits. Wiesus lists a bunch of symptoms, and I want to dive into a few because they aren't the obvious ones. We all know about procrastination, but let's talk about uprooting.
This is one of the sneakiest forms of sabotage because it looks like ambition. Uprooting is when someone is constantly changing their external circumstances. A new job every 8 months, a new city every year.
I have a friend exactly like this. Every time I talk to them, they're moving to a new country, learning a new language. And honestly, from the outside, I'm usually jealous. I think, wow, they're so adventurous. They're really living life.
It feels like an adventure because it triggers a massive dopamine hit. Newness feels like progress. But Wiest calls this staying in the sprouting phase to avoid the work of blossoming.
Sprouting versus blossoming. That's a poetic way to put it. But what's the practical difference?
Sprouting is the initial burst. It's exciting, it's visible, it's fast. But blossoming requires a root system. It requires staying in one place long enough to weather the storms, to deal with the boredom, which is huge, and to work through conflict.
So if you move cities every time you feel lonely, you never learn how to build community. You just find a new audience.
You just find a new audience. It's avoidance masquerading as exploration. If you're constantly uprooting, you never have to do the deep, hard work of maturing. You're perpetually starting over.
Wow. Okay, this leads us to another symptom that I think is really uncomfortable to admit: judging others.
This is a massive block, especially when it comes to money or success. Let's say you walk around thinking rich people are greedy or successful people are narcissists.
Which, let's be honest, is a pretty common sentiment. We see it in movies, on social media all the time.
It is. But here's the problem. Humans are social creatures driven by identity. Your fundamental drive is to be a good person. If you equate wealth with evil, you will subconsciously sabotage any chance you have of becoming wealthy.
Because you have to protect your identity as a good person.
You cannot become what you judge.
Wow. You cannot become what you judge. That makes so much sense biologically, too. Mirror neurons and all that. If I identify wealth as enemy, my brain won't let me join the enemy team.
Precisely. If you judge vulnerability as weakness, you will keep yourself lonely. It's a defense mechanism that backfires completely. You think you're taking the moral high ground, but really you're just locking yourself in the basement.
Okay, so we've got these symptoms: uprooting, judging, but they're just the smoke. The fire is usually fear. But here is where I get stuck, and I think a lot of listeners will too. I'm always told to listen to my gut, trust your intuition. But if I'm sabotaging myself out of fear, isn't my gut the problem?
This is the #1 point of confusion. We use gut instinct and fear interchangeably. but they are completely different biological signals. If you have a big presentation and you feel like you're going to throw up, your gut is screaming, run away. But if you run away, that's self-sabotage.
Right. If I listened to my gut every time I got nervous, I'd never leave my apartment. So how do we distinguish the two? In the moment, they both feel like SOP.
WeDis offers a stress test for this. It
Right.
comes down to the quality and the timing of the voice in your head. Let's look at the voice of fear first. Fear is loud, it is frantic, and most importantly, it is future-oriented.
Future-oriented, so it deals in what-ifs.
Exactly. Let's role play it. You're about to text someone you just started dating.
Yeah.
What does fear say?
Oh, fear says, what if they don't reply? What if I sound desperate? What if they ghost me like the last one? Don't send it. Definitely don't send it.
Perfect. See how that is entirely a story about a catastrophe that hasn't happened yet. It's a movie playing in your head. That is your amygdala trying to predict danger. That is not instinct.
Okay, so if I'm spiraling about a hypothetical scenario next Tuesday, that's fear. So contrast that with instinct.
Instinct is quiet. It is calm. And it is present-oriented. It's a response to what's happening right now in this moment.
Give me a concrete example.
Okay, you're on that date. The person is smiling, saying all the right things, but they lean in a little too close, or their eyes don't quite match their smile. You don't have a frantic monologue. You just have a sudden physical pull backward, a quiet sense of no.
It's immediate. It's almost mechanical.
Yes, it's your body reading the environment, microexpressions, pheromones, tone. So the golden rule is this. If it's a story about the future, it's fear. That's your brain trying to keep you small. If it's a sensory response to the present, that's instinct.
That distinction alone saves so much mental energy. You can acknowledge the loud voice, but realize it's just a bad storyteller.
Exactly. You thank it for trying to protect you, and then you ignore it.
Okay, so we've identified the mountain. We know we're sabotaging. We know it's fear. Now we have to climb it. And this is the part where I think most self-help books fail us, and where Wiest gets really practical. She says we shouldn't wait for a breakthrough.
Oh, we are addicted to the idea of the breakthrough. The Hollywood moment where the music swells, you have an epiphany, and suddenly you're a new person. But Wiest argues that true change is incredibly boring. It happens in micro shifts.
Boring is a hard sell. We want the magic pill. We want the montage sequence.
We do, but the montage sequence is a lie. Think of the penny analogy. If I offer you $1 million today, or a magic penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days, which do you take?
My impulse is the $1,000,000. Give it to me now. I have bills to pay.
Most people would. But the penny, thanks to compound interest, ends up being worth over $10 million. But here's the catch, and this is why we fail at change. Let's look at day 20. On day 20, the person with the $1 million has had $1 million for 3 weeks. They're on a yacht. You, with your magic penny, have about $5,000.
Ouch. So I've been working for 20 days, and I look like an idiot compared to the other guy.
Exactly. You look stupid. You feel like it's not working. That is the valley of disappointment. Micro shifts, like meditating for 5 minutes or saving $10 a day, they feel insignificant for a long time. You have to stay in the game long enough for the compound interest to kick in.
It's about surviving the boredom of the middle.
Correct. And this ties into the concept of being anti-fragile, a term from Nassim Taleb that Wiest uses heavily.
I love this concept. Let's break it down because people often confuse anti-fragile with just resilient.
Right. Resilient means you withstand stress and bounce back to where you were, like a rubber band. Anti-fragile means you actually get better because of the stress. Think about your bones or your muscles. If you go to the gym and lift heavy weights, you are literally tearing your muscle fibers. You're causing micro-trauma.
And the muscle grows back stronger because of the trauma.
Exactly. If you lay in bed all day to protect your muscles, they would atrophy. They need the resistance to grow. The comfort zone we're all trying to stay in. That's an emotional sterile bubble. By staying there, you are making yourself fragile.
So the goal isn't to eliminate stress or fear. The goal is to build capacity.
Yes. You want to build the capacity to handle success, to handle visibility, to handle wealth. You want to stress your system just enough that it grows stronger, not so much that it snaps.
There's one last piece of the climb I want to touch on, which is releasing the past. Because you can't build a new life if you're obsessing over the old one. But the book brings up the white elephant paradox.
Oh, it's the classic psychological trap. If I tell you, whatever you do, do not think of a white elephant. What is the massive image in your brain right now?
A white elephant. I can't help it. It's right there.
Exactly. You cannot let go by force. The brain doesn't have a delete button. The more you try to suppress a thought, the more energy you give it.
So if we can't force it out and we can't delete it, What do we do?
You crowd it out. You have to understand the brain's energy budget again. You focus so intensely on building the new life, the new routine, the new project, that you literally bankrupt the old neural pathways.
It's like overgrown trails in a forest. If you stop walking the path, the grass grows back over it, not because you put up a do not enter sign, but just because you're walking somewhere else.
Exactly. But you have to be willing to start walking that new path, even when it feels unfamiliar. And this is especially true for trauma stored in the body. You have to reestablish safety through exposure. This is where the work gets really gritty.
What does that look like practically? Let's use financial trauma because that's a common one.
Okay, let's say you have deep anxiety about money. Maybe you grew up poor or went bankrupt. Your body goes into fight or flight every time you see a bill. You don't heal that by ignoring money. You heal it by exposure. Wyest suggests you look at your bank account every single morning.
Oh, God. My chest tightened just hearing that. That sounds like torture if you're broke.
It feels like torture. It feels like poking a bruise. But here is the science. The first day, you panic. The second day, you panic. But by day 30, your nervous system realizes, hey, I looked at the number. The number is low, but I didn't die. No tiger ate me.
You're desensitizing the trigger.
You are proving to your body, biologically, that you are safe in the presence of the problem. That is how you release the trauma. You don't let it go, you metabolize it.
That is such a practical, hard-nosed takeaway. It's not manifest abundance. It's look at the scary thing until it stops being scary.
It's active healing, not passive waiting.
So as we reach the summit of this deep dive, let's talk about the view from the top. Wyeth talks about the real glow-up. And I love this because we live in the Instagram era, where a glow-up usually means you lost weight, got a better job, and bought a new wardrobe.
It's all external validation. We think the mountain is about proving people wrong. I'll show my ex, I'll show my high school teacher. But Wyeth says that true transformation, the real mountaintop, is when you no longer care about proving anyone wrong.
That sounds incredibly peaceful, but also kind of alien. If I'm not performing for an audience, who am I?
That's the question, isn't it? The real glow-up is when you prioritize how your life feels to you over how it looks to other people.
It's when you stop posting about the hustle and just do the work. It's when you stop trying to convince people you're happy and just be happy.
It's the shift from being a character in a movie to being the person watching it. You realize the audience doesn't exist. It was just you projecting your own judgments onto empty chairs.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means the obstacle isn't the economy. It isn't your partner. It's that conflict inside you. It's the part of you trying to keep you safe, clashing with the part of you that knows you're meant for more.
And the climb isn't about beating yourself up. It's not about brute force or shaming yourself into productivity. It's about listening, decoding the fear, and gently, methodically building a new comfort zone, one that's big enough to hold your success.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over. It's a question from Wyeth that honestly kept me up a little bit last night after reading it. It's one of those questions that bothers you in a good way.
Lay it on us.
If the mountain is you, and the obstacle is actually a need you are trying to meet, what is the one safe problem you are keeping in your life right now simply because you are too afraid of who you would have to become to solve it?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.